More talk, little headway is how best to describe the ongoing negotiations for a new national minimum wage in Nigeria. While the federal government and the private sector offered organized labor 62,000 as the new national minimum wage, workers are insisting on 250,000 naira. Governor Hope Uzodinma of Imo State gave this figure while speaking on behalf of the governors. For organized labor through the president of the Trade Union Congress of Nigeria, TUC, explained that 250,000 naira is best for them due to the current economic hardship in the land. However, another labor crisis looms following the outright rejection of the proposed 60,000 naira by the Nigeria Governors Forum. The governor said the proposal is not sustainable and cannot fly. Let's share the story of the tripartite committee with you, and we'll be back to discuss this.
The private sector and the government side have agreed on a figure based on what they term as a figure that they can afford. While the Nigeria Labour Congress is also looking at other indices to say that they recommend, if for any reason it can be approved, the sum of 250,000. The whole thing is that the tripartite committee does not have a power of approval. It's just to recommend.
We were able to engage the critical stakeholders involved in the conversation. And at the end of the day, out of the three parties involved in the tripartite committee, both the organized private sector, the government, and organized labor, we met, and the two parties have already agreed to go with 62,000. And then, as at yesterday, the labor insisted on 390,000. They have come down to 250,000. In any event, among the three parties, two have come together to be the majority.
We had to calm down. Initially we started from 615,000 naira, but we moved close to 150%, precisely about 146% from our initial submission. And today we are making a recommendation of 250,000 naira to Mr. President for onward transmission to the National Assembly. So that is where we are today.
It's issue of three people negotiating, and you don't expect them to come in one day and just agree, because there are certain indices that you have to take into consideration, and there are certain things that they are also looking at. And then having come to this end, I believe that we have to move forward.
All right, gentlemen, we're back here. Thank you.
Yes, I just had the Minister of Labour and Employment saying that at this stage we have to move forward. That is what we all desire. But no one can tell how the present leadership of Labour will react to this. For me, I want to see Labour get a minimum wage in excess of 100,000, even if it's 115, 120. I believe that that's good enough. But I don't have the templates. I don't have information about the finances of the federal government, the states. I don't even have information about what the organized private sector can pay without the facts, as it were. Discussion and the projection over what to actually be the minimum wage is somehow meaningless. And this is where I think Labour didn't get it right. Labour should have done its homework. You have your state chapters. For each of those states, Labour should be able to say Zamfara is capable of paying so amount as minimum wage. this is why we think Zamfara can pay. Labour should be able to say, oh, Lagos, looking at your finances, looking at what you earn, IGR, what comes from a federation account and all that, the computation that we have done shows that you are capable of paying minimum wage of 250 or 494 as the case may be. You have those facts, you go to the meeting with those facts, that this is what we have done. We are sure that if Zamfara pays minimum wage of 250,000, for example, it will still be able to have enough funds for water, for sanitation, for refuse evacuation, because it's one big refuse evacuation is one money guzzler. A lot of people don't know. The kind of money that Lagos State spends on evacuating refuse is huge. So then other things, roads, you'll be able to still have enough money for roads and all that. You'll be able to have enough money for debt servicing. Because people don't know that a lot of these debts, a lot of these states are suffering from a huge debt overhang. Successive governments were simply taking loans and all that. And some of those loans were diverted to pay worker salaries. The ones reluctant to do that, President Buhari had to come up with a bailout for them because they were owing many months of salaries, salary arrears. So at this stage, without those facts and figures, you can't just go to a meeting and say, this is what you want. You must be realistic. You must be able to look at what's on ground. If we say they should pay so amount of money, will they have enough in the tank to take care of the welfare of the remaining segment of the population? Because workers are just about 5% of the population. And there is no way you can spend all your resources on workers alone. So this is what I think Labour should be doing. If the government, governor say we can't pay this, you should be able to say, oh, from the facts that we have, we think that you can pay. It's not simply to be banding figures all over the place. Say, no, you must pay this. Oh, if you don't pay this, we'll go and switch off the national grid. Or if you don't pay this, we'll go and chase people out of hospitals. You know, which was an irresponsible thing to do. And I don't expect that they will allow them to do it this time, except if the government itself is irresponsible. Yeah. You must not allow them to switch off national grid again. You must do whatever it takes to secure those entities. They are our security assets. There's a lot of damage that you can do when you switch off the national grid. I've heard people say, oh, if they didn't do it, that's the only way that government is. It makes no sense to reason like that. Because the strike that Oshiomhole organized during Obasanjo's era was more effective than this one. There was no movement. Even bus drivers, they didn't work. At best, in the night, around 8 p.m., they would do a little work. The next day, buses will have been withdrawn. These ones didn't withdraw any bus. Buses were moving. There was movement all over Lagos. When we had that strike during Oshiomhole's time, we were inside our houses. So I know a successful strike, an effective strike when I see one. I do not judge effective strike simply by the fact that somebody switched off national grid or some people went to stop planes from landing. And some planes that were supposed to land now did a detour, went back. No, that's not it. There's a lot of work that you need to do before we get to this point. Now look at how this thing has degenerated. Governors are even accusing federal government now. The federal government is making governors, trying to demonize governors, making governors feel like the bad boys. That the federal government has allowed itself to be bullied to agree to 62 or 65,000 naira per month without looking at the cost, the implications of implementing that. That's the way governors are talking now. So, and if it's a minimum wage, it is backed by law. Everybody must obey. As I've said on another forum, we will get to a point where this minimum wage thing becomes a joke that only a fraction of stakeholders will implement. We are getting there now. If governors say they are not going to pay, and Ajero calls people out again to go on strike, how long are they going to go on strike? Because it's looking like federal government. Look at them saying that. Look at even organized private sector saying that they are shaving their head in their absence. By the bad tactics that the current labor leaders are doing, they've turned this simply into a conversation between the federal government and labor, whereas it is not. It's a tripartite conversation, not a conversation between two entities. It's tripartite. Others too need to be able to get a word in. And if governors are saying we can't pay, then there's a problem. That's why I said this sort of thing, you cannot rush into a strike. This will take time. Let the conversation continue until it leads to a point where we can say, okay, everybody is in agreement. But you rush, you say by May 31, if they do not agree, that you go on strike. Meanwhile,
give government enough time.
No, you see, the idea of going on strike on May 31st made no sense because government had already said that the implementation will be that whenever we decide, implementation will start from May 31. They said that. You can Google, you see where the Minister of Labour said that. So what is the point of going on strike on May 31st? You know? So I don't know how states, some of those states are not paying 18,000, no. Some are not paying 30. How you expect them to pay more than 60,000?
I'll come back to that because economists are saying something very important that we need to listen to. Adeoye, another crisis is looming. But do you agree that the negotiation tactics of organized labor is wrong? I mean, if you knew you would come down to 250,000, why start with 600 and something, then 500? I mean...
Well, I wouldn't say labor did not use just one tactic. Labor employed a variety of tactics. Some of the tactics, like collective bargaining, is part of the tradition of labor, which I think makes sense. But in terms of the strategy of engaging the government, I have my disagreement. And that's where I agree with Babajide. That look, this debate, conversation is not just about government and the people and labor. It's also about the people. We want to be convinced that if my parents, if I want to buy certain things for my children, what I'm going to buy for them will not harm them. For instance, Kano State gets 9.2, state spends 9.2 billion on salary, 151,000 workers in Kano. And then in December, received 13.85 billion in December. The allocation has not gone up more than 1.7% since January this year. If Kano paid 60,000, that means the wage bill of 9.2 billion will become 18.4 billion. Whereas Kano will be receiving probably about 18 billion. That means what Kano will receive will be far less than the wage bill. Oyo State has
on 60,000.
Yes, Oyo State has 115,000 workers. Wage bill 11 billion per month. Oyo State receive about 15 billion. If Oyo State pays 60,000 naira, it will end up around 22 billion for salary, far more than what Oyo State will receive in a month. So this is why this thing is about us. It's about our future. We need to be convinced, whichever figures that government wants to pay, because there are going to be very serious chain effects. On rent, if, for instance, you are paying 100,000 naira, let's say 250,000 naira, self-contained in Shomolu, and then you now, your landlord realizes that your salary has been doubled, you will increase that rent.
Yes.
If you are not able to pay, you and your relations, nobody will help you. Not even labor will be able to help you.
About 600.
Yes. There's going to be impact on housing, on rent, on social. Look at one pint of tomatoes. I almost fainted. 12,000 naira. So there's no price regulation. So if you now say, okay, we want to pay 150,000 naira, the tomato seller, what will he do? He will increase that to 24,000 naira. So we need to be technical.
That's the Cobra effect economy we're talking about.
We need to be technical. We need to, well, you may make a demand, but be very conscious of the consequences. And that is why I blame government. You see, even in this conversation, government has not come out to tell us these are the challenges we are going to face if we pay. It's only recently that I say, okay, they are submitting the figures and all that. I felt there should be constructive engagement with the government so that the masses will be convinced about the rightness of your position.
Yes. Yes.
That is absent.
I don't know what the delay is about.
I don't
Let
understand.
people see the truth.
Let's see the figures. Let's see the figures. So we need to, yes, we want this thing to go up and all that, but will certain sectors sack workers if they realize they cannot pay? Is it not better to have bread than nothing?
In fact, someone told me that for the private sector it's easy. Banks, for example, will now convert a lot more of their staff to casual
workers.
And casual workers are paid peanuts.
Yeah.
They are not paid living wages at all. So that's a technical way of not retrenching.
Yeah.
But a lot more will retrench. It's just inevitable that even in the civil service, retrenchment will happen.
Yeah.
If we have people who are hardworking, people who are very productive, we should do our best to keep them. The ones who are not productive, they can shove them out of the system. There's no big deal about that. You can't tell me that everybody in the civil service, every Nigerian worker is productive.
Yeah.
A lot of them are dead woods that we are carrying, dead weight that we are carrying. So there is a need, to pay a living wage. And a living wage is way higher than what government is proposing. But it can come with a cost. It can come with a cost. Labor should be prepared for the fact that if he continues to ask for maybe 250 and all that, then downsizing or right-sizing the bureaucracy could become inevitable. They should be ready for that eventuality, honestly. And
Bikio, economists are saying one of the corporate effects of this demand is that the country may go into recession if we're not careful. Are we ready for this?
Recession, because this will lead to serious inflation, no doubt about it. It will lead to serious inflation. Apart from the fact that minimum wage is a constitutional requirement. Every 5 months, it's in the law, you must review it. I think that some measures, some government policies will profit us a lot more than salary increase. Okay. For example, if we can get our currency to be stronger, for example, people will be able to afford a lot of the things that they can't afford now. If we can stop spending our hard-earned foreign exchange on importing fuel and helping to boost the economy of the countries where those refineries are located. For example, I don't understand why up to now the refinery in Port Harcourt is not working. And the NNPC GMD will shamelessly tell his country that, it will start working from April. We'll wait and wait. April passes, nothing has happened. He needs to apologize to us for raising our hope needlessly. April, that was what he said. He was quoted as saying that. Why do you go to TV station, go and announce that refinery will work by April, and then 2 months after, it has not worked, and you have no explanation? No, it's wrong now. It's wrong. So for me, there are policies that Labour can push the government to implement that will make life more bearable for all of us,
Yeah.
than simply talking about salary increase in salary. Because let me tell you, the way the economy is going, if they pay even this 250, inflation will wipe it out in no time. That 250 will not have value in no time. So we need steps to be taken that will actually insulate us against this galloping inflation that we are seeing. And we know where it began from. The moment the president announced that he was removing subsidy, the moment he began to float the naira, things literally went south. And we've not recovered. Nigerians are gasping. And that's why a lot of people have sympathy for Labour's agitation.
Bikio, let's quickly take Ade's call. Ade is calling from the UK. Good afternoon to you. Welcome to Journalist Hangout.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead.
Very loud.
Yeah. Actually, my own take is that both government and Labour are not serious. They need to come with figures. Both the Labour union should be able to say, instead, like Abagide said, to have the figures of what they want to present. Why they need to argue so that the governors compare with what the National Assembly is taking, compare what the State Assembly is taking, compare with other sectors of the economy. That is the only way they can convince society and government that they can pay. Otherwise, it's not reasonable, it's not attainable. The money they are asking for is a living wage. But we have to consider the economy of the country.
Yes.
We'll get there, and also Labour should not emphasize on salary alone. It's not salary we need. They should try to negotiate for other things like transport. In the past, they have NSC as Labour, they have buses. Where are the buses today? That's why they couldn't manage it.
Give them buses.
These are the things that they need to do to improve the economy. It's not just about salary. Salary will be wiped away by inflation.
All right, Ade, you've raised the valid points. Thank you so much for calling. Thank you. Adeoye, I mean, we've talked about states receiving. What do you think state governors must do? They also need to increase productivity in their states.
Absolutely. Each state was giving, if I'm correct, I think 22 billion per state, I think palliatives and all that. And we are talking about prices of tomatoes, of maize, of grains. It takes 55 to 95 days for tomatoes to mature. Maize, 60 to 100 days. Just imagine. Where are the tomato farms of our states? Even they cannot even go to farm. But how many people have they encouraged to go into mass production of food? Because if prices of tomatoes come down, prices of maize come down, transportation come down, people I can earn my pay and then I'll be comfortable. Yes. There was a time university students were spending 40 kobo in this country to feed. Yes.
With chicken.
With ice cream. You know, when our university less than, there was what we used to call it without poor students, no meat, 80 kobo. So if prices of food items, but what we find ourselves is that almost every week, prices of medicine, prices of food stuff, everything going up.
And they won't come down.
And they will not come down. No price control. He's talking about transportation. For instance, if government pulls down some vehicles from here, Lagos to Kano, and then you reduce the price. Kano to Kaduna, then you reduce the price. Then people will begin to feel the impact of government intervention.
Right. We had this in the past, and it really helped. All those buses. I remember Kaduna even had double-decker buses.
Yeah.
No, like the ones in the UK. Double-decker. Kaduna, you see, carrying students going up and down, patrolling.
We are not investing there. We are
wonder Nigerian youths are saying the older generations who enjoyed the scholarship.
When he was talking about when students used to get vouchers for feeding, they will come together. They will use those vouchers to buy food and then organize party with food that they bought in the restaurant, in the dining hall, with chicken and everything. People coming from outside, they will see that you have chicken, you have your drink. Even me as a student in secondary school, they used to put egg. And the egg came from